Welcome everyone to the Spiel Sports Talk Show, season 7 of the Spiel. It's your boy Sal. It's a Muslim live from Pittsburgh. Super late, Friday morning technically, about to head into the weekend. Super excited just to be done with the work week here. I'm having a good time with my guys here, and we decided to give y'all a late night NFL free agency edition of the Spiel. And tonight, got the usual. Got Quay and Randy. How both y'all doing tonight?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We in the building, back at it. This is the postseason vibes. How we feeling before spring kicks in? A lot of movement to cover. You know you're going to get our great spiels to cut it off at the end. Give y'all something to chew on until we're back at it again.
Yeah, always a pleasure having you. Quay, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, feeling refreshed. Today was a lazy Thursday, honestly. It was much needed. Going to Costa Rica next week for the birthday, so it was really good to kind of get a show going. And honestly, maybe have an international show when I'm done for the day, go with some of my Costa Rica travels with the Spiel show next week. Who knows? But, always a pleasure to get together and give you guys the best sports news, in the lands.
I'm going to Costa Rica.
Always looking forward to it.
For a wedding end of the year, so I'm going to have to scope out and see how your time was there.
Oh, definitely. I'll let you know. I'll definitely let you know what to do, what to not do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that should be fun. I've never been to Costa Rica before, but that sounds like a lot better than the weather, at least that we've been having here in Pittsburgh. For some reason, the winter decided to came back from the living dead. But yeah,
the opposite is happening here. The summer is starting sooner. It's starting much sooner. Supposedly 100s for a couple of days next week. That's when I'm glad I'm going to Costa Rica then. But yeah, it seems like summer's coming early here.
Yeah, that is crazy. But we got a lot to talk about tonight, so let's get going. In particular, we wanted to talk about all the stuff that's happened since our last episode. So last time we were here, we were previewing the Super Bowl, which the Seattle Seahawks ended up winning. And this week, the Super Bowl MVP, Kenneth Walker, is now with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. And he wasn't the only player to move around. We had some big trades. DJ Moore got traded to the Bills. We saw Trey Hendrickson move from the Bengals to their AFC North rival, the Ravens here. And we also have what happened with Maxx Crosby. But let's put the Maxx Crosby stuff aside because I wanted to talk about that afterwards. But in general, I mean, what are your thoughts about free agency here in 2026?
Say before going into that, shout out to because it's weird, we never did a show kind of going over Super Bowl, but I think during our preview, pretty much we all thought that Super Bowl was going to go the way that it did. Shout out to the Seahawks, Sam Darnold, really changing his legacy, being the first quarterback of that draft class to win a Super Bowl. And that draft class, you would have thought, oh yeah, Lamar would definitely get Josh Allen, like definitely go with Sam Darnold, But Kenny Walker, I think the writing was on the wall there. He had a great game, a great little stint in Seattle, but I think the writing was on that he was probably going to be on the move. The team started to use Charbonnet a little bit more. Beforehand, Charbonnet was just more of a goal line change of pace back. They really started to split carries, to sometimes then leaning into Charbonnet a little bit more. That could have been because Kenny Walker was a little bit banged up. But overall, still, like I said, they started to lean in and teams tend to pay running back. You you have to be a real standout all purpose. That's not saying that K9 can't give it, can't do all things on the field. He can catch out of the backfield. He has, decent speed. He can break tackles. So it's not like he is a one trick pony or anything or can't be a bell cow. But again, teams don't tend to try to pay running back. So that happened there. But going to a Super Bowl winning team, that they can lean into. They were really hurting at running back last year, really relying on Kareem Hunt. I think this really helps the Chiefs out a lot. Losing Isaiah Pacheco, but replacing him with, I think, a better running back, where Pacheco goes to Detroit. Speaking of Detroit, they did not re-sign David Montgomery, and David Montgomery is with the Texans, who, again, all it takes is for CJ Stroud to just play like a Trent Dilfer. They can win a Super Bowl. I think a lot of teams or a lot of fans are going to see them and actually think they can win this year as long as CJ plays very well. Another trade that I really like. Talk about Super Bowl. Super Bowl contending teams. I like the Bills really helped getting a receiver, getting DJ Moore. What was funny is I thought it was going to be maybe trade and Keon Coleman a part of that, just because of some of the comments made during the offseason. Part of the reason why Sean McDermott got hired, but then Brandon Beane, tape of him pretty much being the one that won. They threw him under the bus along with Sean McDermott. So, but anyway, but I think that DJ Moore move helps to really boost up the receiving core a little bit more, depending on how free agency goes and also the draft coming up next month too. So we'll see how that all goes. Another like thing I really liked was the Steelers. If you want to talk about my Steelers here, did a lot of things that I was really surprised about. I pretty much gave up on the season. I think some of my language, some of my feelings in previous shows after our loss, or embarrassing loss to the Texans in the playoffs. I pretty much gave up on the season. Mike McCarthy becoming our head coach, after Tomlin stepping down, and it's like, what are we doing here? Supposedly in win now mode for him, but then it's like, well, he hasn't done anything of true significance outside of getting Dak Prescott and the Cowboys a playoff victory, their second one in Dak Prescott's career. Their offense was good too, I guess, which is like what the Steelers are looking for. But that has shown getting a receiver like a Michael Pittman, where I think that's always when the Steelers have been their best. When we've had a receiver who is more of a chain mover, can really run amazing routes, can find the soft spots in the zone, and has star level potential. The Hines Wards of the world was, a star receiver in his day, especially once we started to have Ben as a quarterback there. Having Jericho Cotchery for a few seasons, and Jericho Cotchery wasn't necessarily a big name receiver, but he really produced for us, having a 10 touchdown season, being a big threat because we really thrived. Juju even came on the scene as well, being a really possession type receiver that made those tough catches that really helped our offense continue drives. So I like the Pittman move. I really liked us getting a Jamel Dean as well to go on the opposite side of JP. When he's healthy, that's the only real question mark. Jamel Dean can type cornerback, and him bringing in the likes of like a Jaquan Brisker and like a Rico Dowdle after losing Kenny Gainwell to the Buccaneers, which that's a big move for them too. But it really goes to show that maybe we are one now. We just need to figure out the quarterback position. I still don't think we are a Super Bowl team, even if we figure out the quarterback position of saying it's Aaron Rodgers. I really want us to start Will Howard, which is why I don't think we're necessarily going to go to a Super Bowl this year. If with that being the reason, just need to see what the kid has so we know what's going to happen next year. For do we need to draft a quarterback and do we need to draft a quarterback high in the higher round? Do we need to maybe just fill the team out because we did find our quarterback this year in Will Howard? Or maybe making a trade. Maybe Omar Khan does make that trade, get like a Mac Jones from the Niners. Which, speaking of that, I have to bring up the Mike Evans move there. So a lot of crazy, crazy moves going on already. Free agency. I mean, the Raiders have done a lot of positions. Teron Johnson was a trade I didn't think that was going to happen, and settle things like the Saints with Etienne being on the team now, and so I'm impressed by a lot of what these GMs have been doing. It's been very impressive. It does feel like Madden a little bit.
Yeah.
I was going to talk about the Commanders, but I'm going to leave that all to Randy because they made some great moves too. I think definitely trying to make sure they retool and make some noise in the NFC East.
Yeah, definitely can pick up right there with the Commanders in the NFC East. We have been the most active team in the division thus far in the offseason. I'm trying to keep myself grounded because, again, this is just, March chatter. But seeing the moves that our front office are making does bring a smile to my face, and it's addressing some concerns that you guys have heard me talk about on the show throughout the season. Just really for preserving the longevity of our young quarterback, and then also building out our defense to be competent and really actually be able to keep us in games. They showed signs of being able to do that later in the season, for example, like against the Broncos, but I don't think, had the personnel to really be consistent like that throughout the year. So I love the signings to shore up our secondary. Of Nick Cross, Amik Robertson, but I also think, for me, the good thing is most of these signings are also sensible value signings. I don't think we overspent on anyone, so that gives us more wiggle room to really go for the bigger pushes. I also love what we did on our defensive edge. We got some big hitters and power that we can really start to press teams with. I think we'll be able to give different looks
Mm-hmm.
that we were more limited in this past year because we couldn't bring that pressure. Now we have the artillery to do that, and then on the offensive side of the ball, the shield that protects our quarterback. I think not only acquiring new talent, but also like a Laramie Tunzel, but just re-signing folks for continuity, familiarity. I think that's so important when you're really trying to build like a core group with a young quarterback and have an offensive identity. So seeing a commitment to Trent Scott, Andrew Wiley, hoping that they continue to develop and really just help push that. I do like the Okonkwo signing of 3 years, just like I think 3 years, 30 million, 10 mil a year for a solid tight end who I think could improve with his catching ability, but is also really solid in the run game. And I think another piece that can help protect Jaden too. And I think that is equally like, to me, the tight end is that's your extension of your offensive line. Um, and having someone who can flex and be the blocker, because I think there are so many talented tight ends that you can throw out there who can catch the ball, but not many of them can also give you some of the best plays in terms of run blocking or also just creating space downfield for the receivers. And I think we have a good enough receiving core with someone like a Debo that we can really be flexible. I would like to see us bring in one more big receiver. I know there's been chatter of Brandon Ayuk as well. Maybe, like, obviously he's been off the rails, and we're not sure what he would look like on an NFL team. But I think if we can get him for cheap and the camaraderie or relationship that he had with Debo is still there, I think that he could fit in, and it's worth the opportunity because of what he was before injury. Um, and I think we also have a solid enough receiving core. If it doesn't pan out, then hey, we didn't have to sink too much money into a player like that. But all in all, I want to see us also. I'm interested to see where we land in the draft based on these signings now as well. So, what is going to be our draft priority? And I'm also super happy about the re-signing of Marcus Mariota. I think he's a good locker room guy. I think the backup quarterback, as much as we were talking about Kenneth Walker and like how running backs are kind of a movable commodity in most teams' eyes because they have such a short lifespan at their peak. On average, of course, there are people who shatter that, like a Derrick Henry, but they're few and far between. And I think teams have started to try to get ahead of that curve and are willing to move on someone in their prime just because they know how much they'll be diminished when they're not performing at that level anymore. So I think all in all, excited, optimistic, but also looking across the NFC East specifically too. I see other teams are making moves, so that concerns me a little bit because it looks like they're trying to keep that thing on them too. The Cowboys have been pretty active thus far, franchise tagging George Pickens. I think that's a really smart move for them.
Definitely.
And yeah, Brandon Aubrey coming back, best kicker in the league. These are things that they have that potent offense. I hope that they continue to not sign defensive players and suck there. But that's just me being pessimistic. Giants with the investment of Isaiah Likely. I think that's a good like
Hmm.
future pick for them, and he will do really well with the hottest white boy in the league right now. Um, and then if they get Scatabo back, it would be interesting to
Yeah.
see how that team can all come together.
Calvin
And
Austin too.
Isaiah Likely is also someone who's shown potential, but probably suffered from lack of touches and splitting time with Mark Andrews. So, will be interesting to see how he develops from there. Still a really young player. And then going into the Eagles, yeah, just looking solid. They've also bolstered themselves at tight end, and then their secondary as well. So grabbing two corners so far, but it seems like the Eagles have been a little bit quiet. Interested to see what else they've got up their sleeves, because obviously to me that's the team to beat in the division.
Yeah. I think that there's also a lot of notable names still out there. I think Tua just signed with Atlanta. That should be really interesting. We talked about Kyler Murray before the show going to Minnesota, so that'd be
Hmm.
nice for him. I think change of location. You get arguably one of the best receivers in the league, so that should be
Hmm.
exciting for Kyler. I think the task at hand there. Um, and then you have some vets like the Aaron Rodgers of the world haven't made any news. No ideas. Is he going to resign? Stephon Diggs is still out there as well, obviously. So
Legal issues, though.
that is true. But his brother is also available as well, I think, Trayvon. So there's just a lot of people out there that still need to be sorted out.
He wasn't on a full deal with the Packers. I thought he signed a 1 year or something.
They released him.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and who knows? Maybe there's something going on personally there too. There's just like a lot of players out there that could play that I think could be serviceable for a team that still haven't signed on the dotted line there. I think
I
Juwan
just sent you.
Jennings.
I just sent you a
Romeo
clip
Doubs
that I
just
want
signed with
you to
the
pull up.
Patriots as we talked on Diggs and the Patriots.
I think
Algiers out here. Tyler Algier probably gets a starting job. Honestly, being out here in Arizona,
exactly.
Oh, you just sent a meme.
so good.
Yeah, I've got you some footage of the Atlanta Falcons.
Losing my religion.
This is the Falcons picking up free agents.
I think two will be could do decent. I think he's obviously had success
He's
in the
just gonna be.
league. They got to wait for Penix to get healthy, so it might not
Hmm.
be the worst thing. in New
Have
Orleans.
you
It's pretty funny.
have you seen the reaction from some of the Falcons fans on social media? It's been pretty funny. So that's where all of those memes have come from. There was apparently a Twitter Spaces at the time that the news was announced of Falcon fans congregating about the free agency, and the entire room was like screaming in pain as one person revealed that Tua had been signed. But I think, yeah, in all fairness to Tua, he actually has been a very serviceable quarterback. He's of course had ups and downs, but I think discounting him is a little bit unfair. But you know, in the NFL world, there are a lot of fair weather fans who are less forgiving. And being realistic, the injuries that Tua has come back from, and to still be a serviceable player, shows to his grit and his resilience. So I'm sure, even though some of the Falcon fans haven't been the most welcoming, that with a couple good performances, he can win them over.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I think so.
and I think sometimes a change of scenery is needed. I think with him, I don't think a lot of his interviews did him justice last year. Um,
That's
and then
true. Those
also,
gonna play in Jerusalem. Get out of here.
yeah, and I also think, there's some unfairness with the fact of, the concussion history and the fact that maybe that has caused a certain diminish in play. We hope that's not necessarily the case, but I think there's still that thing that we think about sometimes when it comes to Tua, if he even should be playing anymore. But I think he is a good quarterback within the right system. He is a lefty, so yeah, the transition of how they run their offense, you won't have to shift things or anything, so that'll help. But Miami may have gotten a better quarterback out of this with Malik Willis too. It's like I said, there's been some great moves here. Saw this tweet saying that the Mike, sorry, Mike, Malik Willis and Devon Achan is gonna go crazy, and it's like, yeah, that is gonna go speedy running back, speedy running back, speedy quarterback.
Yep,
One can it doesn't matter. He can tuck it, run, give it to Shannon. He has space. But then again,
gotta stay
was that
healthy.
because of stay healthy, or was that all because of Mike McDaniels? There's always those questions here. With even when there are changes and players on the move, it's all about if it can all translate and things can change and shift up and shift smoothly. So
Yeah, I mean, 45 million guaranteed. I mean, he looked good in some of those latter games when Jordan Love was out. I know that a lot of Steeler fans are like, that was the quarterback that we could have drafted versus Kenny Pickett, who also got signed. He got signed to the Panthers, if I'm not mistaken.
to the Panthers.
So yeah, that we're making moves. So I want to move on to
Oh, and
the
shout out. Sorry.
yeah,
One
no,
more
no,
thing while we brought up the Panthers. Shout out to Patrick Jones Jr. or Patrick Jones II. I've seen him. He came into my job. I was unfortunately not the one to work on him. Okay, but shout out to you. Next time you're in Phoenix, I'll work on you again, bro. Or I'll work on you next time if you ever. Shout out.
hey,
That's dope.
big shout out there, big shout out there.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, I wanted
Frequent
to
throws.
move on to the big story of free agency, and that's the Maxx Crosby failed trade. So a couple of days ago, the news comes out that the Raiders had agreed to trade Maxx Crosby to the Baltimore Ravens for two first round draft picks. And right now, the story is that the Ravens backed out of the deal because of a failed physical. There were concerns over the knee. The NFL social media verse is speculating that maybe it's other things. But regardless, Crosby has come out and said, I'm a Raider now. And the Raiders have publicly come out and said that they didn't want to even trade him, but was the one who requested a trade and wanted to leave. And now that the trade has been botched, maybe he's feeling, you know what, if no one wants me, I'm going to prove myself here with the team that I started out with. So, what are your guys' thoughts here on the Ravens, who ended up picking Trey Hendrickson, as we had spoken about earlier? Was this something about the physical, or do we think that maybe they're second guessing the value of a player who just came off of a major injury, and whether or not that is worth trading 2 first round draft picks? What happened here? I mean, I think this is very unprecedented, just because this wasn't one of those things where they agree to trade, something fails, and then they back out. It felt like there were a couple of days in between the day that we got the news that this trade was going to happen and the day that we find out, wait, actually, no, this isn't going to happen at all. They back out of it. And we're going to go ahead and do Trey Hendrickson. Do you think this is the Ravens gaming the market and getting the player that is cheaper and arguably a better value, and getting cold feet on the player that is coming off an injury here? Because there are a lot of NFL conspiracy theorists that are really bought into this and thinking that we need to investigate the Ravens and what they did. I think it's as easy as maybe that knee isn't as healed as they would like, or as they were, maybe Crosby and his camp had kind of played it off to the Raiders and also to the Ravens themselves. So, what are your guys' thoughts here on this trade, this botched trade, this failed trade?
Yeah, I think there's definitely something that feels fishy or kind of stinks about the way that the news was announced and then things kind of broke down. I think typically when we do see like a player failing a medical and that's the reason given, there is usually also like a specific medical condition or something that is specified. So this one seems a little bit more like the Ravens pulling out at the last minute and being able to use the fact that the medical hadn't been done as kind of like a last checkpoint. I would imagine that they were trying to negotiate for multiple players at the same time. And as this deal took shape, and then the Hendrickson deal that ultimately ended up happening afterwards, I think was probably starting to take shape. And then in comparison, the Ravens probably wanted a specific number to work with. And what they realized is, okay, we would rather keep the draft picks. And I think that's what drove the decision. I think they're losing in comparison between the two players that they would have gotten in Crosby, a little bit more of a run stopper. But again, it could have been some hesitance into his ability to bounce back from the injury, I think. Either that or Joe Burrow slipped in and impersonated their medical examiner. And another funny joke that, if we want to believe the agenda, is that Maxx Crosby blew Black and Mild smoke in Eric DeCosta's face, and that was enough for the Ravens to send him back home packing. And I choose to believe that story because it was as great as it was to see him like celebrating with Shibuzi and his friends and company. It's so funny the way that it kind of unraveled shortly after that celebration, and him just really celebrating that moment. But I think if he's happy to go back to Oakland, he's coming back from injury. He can still prove himself. I'm sure the fans still want him there. All's well that ends well, in my opinion. But I think the Ravens really were just trying to have their cake and eat it too, and used a last minute kind of just cop out to get out of a deal that they felt like they were overpaying for.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of fishy. I didn't even hear about it when it initially had happened. I just one of my friends is a Ravens fan back home in Pittsburgh, and I just remember seeing him like share this thing on his story with him looking at his phone all sad now, and I'm like, I don't understand why you sad. You guys literally just Maxx Crosby the other day being sad for, and then seen it pop up on either my feed or on YouTube, and I was like, wait, what? Trey Hendrickson? Like, what's going on? I got Trey Hendrickson too. And then I saw the Maxx Crosby. I was like, oh, all right. And so for me, I thought it was kind of weird too, just why did they avoid the trade? And I'm like, okay, felt physical. Well, I feel like you knew he did get surgery. And it's not like a season ending type surgery. He just got surgery to clean his knee up. I feel like you expect there to maybe not be, 100% out of 100% when it comes to his movements and what he should be capable of doing or what. But so it does make me wonder, well, yeah, we are going to be able to get Trey Hendrickson and we don't have to give up draft picks anymore. We just bring this trade back. That is a good conspiracy. The one I actually thought of was, you know, was there something that the Raiders knew that maybe even they were trying to see? Well, if we can't get a good turnout for our season this year, in terms of free agents, we'll have a good draft and future ahead of us. I think it was weird as they really loaded up. I mean, they had a lot, and now it just kind of feels like, oh, what if we were able to get Maxx Crosby back too? And so it makes me wonder, like, is there potential that they knew something just so they could either way, potentially there's like, oh, well, maybe Max will show enough and the Ravens will be fine and we can get this nice little this nice haul, and then we have our free agent picks. It seems fishy. I don't know who is maybe responsible for the shadiness of this deal, but I feel like both teams weirdly benefited from him not going there because the Raiders, like I said, they loaded up free agency on defense, and now bring back your All Pro, pass rusher, edge rusher, who at when he's healthy is a top five edge in the league. So, and then the Ravens get Trey Hendrickson, same thing where he could be top five, has top five potential, maybe argue number five when he's fully healthy. So just one of those things where I don't think it hurts anybody, but it's still such an interesting thing to have happened. I don't think we don't see anything like this, so it's just kind of weird to me um, that he's not a Raven. But at the same time, I'm kind of happy because I had texted that same friend I was just talking about, saying how it's like I hate but also secretly just respect the Ravens for doing certain moves. They always do these moves every single year, one or two, maybe three, where I'm like, how? What how did you guys do this? I didn't even think about this being a thing for y'all, and y'all did it. So yeah, I'm glad it's not Max, but hey, Trey Hendrickson is also really good and it helps their team out a lot still. So always a bloodbath when the Steelers and Ravens meet. Yeah, this whole Maxx Crosby thing is very interesting. But again, like I said, it doesn't hurt anybody.
Yeah, I think as a Steelers fan, we see Trey twice a year, so nothing has really changed other than the uniform.
No,
But I think the idea of having Crosby play against the Steelers twice a year definitely is a scary thought there. But I
hmm
think it's a genius way to pivot. I mean, even if this, it seemed to me, in my opinion, I think maybe like Randy was saying, they were already in the middle of discussions with a bunch of different players, and they found a player that value was similar, comparable to Crosby, but
without giving up picks.
without giving up picks. Because I think both of them have kind of this injury history that you need to kind of be wary about. But I think giving up two first round draft picks and you have to pay the player, I think at the end of the day, this was a very genius move here by the Ravens. So we'll see how it pans out. I think the Ravens are lost some players over there in free agency as well. So I think they'll probably hit the draft for those players. And I think their
Mm-hmm.
team is going to bounce back. I mean, you still have Lamar, and you still have some of those offensive weapons too. So they just need to fix up that defense, which wasn't up to par last season, giving up some big plays in crucial moments. So I think that's enough NFL talk. Let's move over to the NBA. In particular, it was a historic night for Bam Adebayo, scoring 83 points against Randy's Washington Wizards. He had 83 points, 36 points from the free throw line, hit seven threes, um, and he had about 30 plus in the first at the end of the first quarter. Historic game. I mean, this is a guy who is the focal point of Miami basketball right now. A Team USA player, obviously one of the best American players in the world, and this 83-point game surpasses the late great Kobe Bryant's infamous 81 against the Toronto Raptors. I think back in 2000, was it 2005 or 2006 season? Yeah,
Yeah.
the 05-06 season, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, Bam went off here. So I guess we got to ask our Miami Heat fan here, Quay, what are your thoughts here on Bam doing 83? Is it as impressive as Kobe's 83? He's almost, I think, you would argue that in today's day and age, you're never going to get 100 points, but this is the closest thing to that 100 points there. But yeah, what are your thoughts overall on Bam's historic night?
I think it's cool to just see someone score that many points, push a record that far. Kobe dropping 81 is kind of like one of those once in a lifetime things. Kobe was also just a different type of animal in terms of the array of shots that he could offer you and the volume shooting that Kobe could really do to kind of carry an offense and also set the pace for a game. But when you think of Bam Adebayo, he is that all-around defensive first player who has grown into a serviceable offensive option. And then also, I think as the Miami Heat team has transitioned into its current version post Jimmy Butler, more of the offensive burden has kind of had to fall on Bam. And I think this is honestly, it's pretty genius by Spoelstra, and I think he definitely helped orchestrate this to a high degree. Um, and he really wanted to instill that confidence in Bam of like, look, you're the guy, and we can run things through you. And so once they were kind of blowing the other team out, they really started to get strategic. And I think some people would question the ethics of how they got to the 83 points, like, forcing, baiting for fouls, etc. But to me, that's part of the modern game. I think it's the most entertaining thing to watch? No, but I also think that for a March regular season game to generate this much buzz and discussion is a win-win for the NBA. I think LA fans who are mad about it and say that it kind of like disparages what Kobe did, I think that's a little ridiculous and a little bit too self-centered. Kobe's 81 points is, again, for the reasons that I mentioned at the beginning, because of the way that he did it and like the way that Kobe Bryant played the game, is still always going to stand out on its own. And then, of course, dwarfing both of those discussions, we have Wilt's infamous 100-point game. So at the end of the day, I think having another game that's over 81 points is not that big of a deal when you consider that there's the record of Wilt, but of course everyone says there's no video footage of that performance. And I think, hey, we all love Kobe and we love the way that Kobe played. And even if I imagine Wilt getting 100 points, it was probably much more akin to the things that Bam Adebayo was doing, getting those points out in the paint. and then just jacking up a high number of shots. But I do give credit to Bam. 22 3-point attempts. I would never expect to see that from him. Hitting 7 of them is actually like better than I expected from him. And then on top of that, he still had to put himself in a position where even if they were not being unethical, he's dropping a 60 to 70 point game, which is like top season performance. So again, I think for a March game, it's nice to have something to talk about. Him and Azure Wilson, man, there's place your parlays on their kids because that is going to be some top tier basketball talent that is being bred over there. So, more power to Bam. Congratulations on that. I think Miami is still having a lackluster season. Maybe this is something for them to hang their hat on and turn things around and push for higher playoff seeding. But yeah, that's all it ends up being to me. I think it's fun to see, good to hear, and records are meant to be broken. And again, at the end of the day, was Kobe's 81 really the record, or was Wilt's 100 the record? Depending where you land on that, I think you might have a different take on Bam's performance. But I think it's all entertainment, it's all spectacle. Adam Silver's slapping it up either way.
I was very, in certain ways, I don't necessarily, I don't necessarily like it. I am happy for Bam though. I do like it for Bam. But I was a little more harsh about it, I think, initially seeing it because I didn't watch the game. Um, but when I literally read messages and see things pop up talking about Bam historic, I'm like, this is real. This man dropped 83 points tonight. I'm like, it is the Wizards. I know the Wizards are a young team right now. Like 83 points by Bam. I'm just thinking to myself, like, how did he get these 83 points? And like before I even actually get into all of that, which is why I think as I watched more insight into it, I'm less likely to say that it is fully unethical. I would say maybe 10 to 15% of it actually was unethical. The other 85 I actually give a lot of true credit um, to Bam and the play. What made me look at it from a different point of view was seeing that 7 of 22 stat line from threes, and I'm like, bro was really just doing anything to try to get 83 points. But like I said, I looked into more things. But I want to shout out Bam himself for which I think this has helped his game overall. And Spoelstra is a big factor in this, and also us having who I like to call Superman, just because you say his name a certain way, it does look like it's Khalil, and it's just like, yeah, we got Superman on the team. But Khalil Ware, who now is our full time center. Bam has always played center, and he was always more undersized. He's just fully athletic, but being more 6'9", 6'10", you're considered more undersized as a center at that point, especially in today's league. When you got guys who are 7 foot, 7'3", 7'5", 7'7". You know, it's just like probably gonna be a little undersized. So I think him playing more power forward has really opened up his game a little bit more. A few years ago, he was on a three ball, would take more corner threes here and there if he was wide open, spot up. But we see this year he's been taking a little bit more. And it's crazy to think that he went 7 of 22, and I'm going to get into this stat a little bit later. But it's crazy that he went for 7 of 22 because it probably could have been better and should have been better. If, again, this is where I say the unethical part, where it's just like, bro, you were doing anything. You weren't taking great shots and all of that. I think a lot of people are upset about his because when you look at Kobe's 81, it was a very contentious game, and Kobe had every right to still be out there and it was like he was still playing smart basketball because he had to try to win the game still. As here, the Heat had no real reason except for like, oh, he's kind of in line to, so let's go for it. And now I'm gonna get like why it's not really unethical. Bam in the first 12 minutes, and this is insane, absolutely insane. First 12 minutes of the game, 1 quarter of basketball, 31 points, shot 10 of 16 from the field. This is why I said the 7 of 22 is wild because he made 5 of 8 in the first quarter and then 6 of 7 from the free throw line. The fact that he only made 2 more threes, shot literally 2 of 14 is crazy. After that's what I said, like, bro, you were just jacking anything up. You could have took better shot. Like, I'm cool with it if you were to take better shots. But he 31 points in the first quarter, and if you really broke it down over 4 quarters of play, yeah, he could have had a nice little record. So I understand, like, especially once he got to 60 and we're midway through the third quarter, it's like, all right, maybe you do go for it. Maybe you do go ahead and go for it. And then Wizards actually played stronger defense on him. That's part of the reason why he kind of tailed off in different ways in terms of the scoring efficiency. Yeah, he shot more free throws. People feel like they were poor hack calls, and it was like, nah, he got fouled. Shout out to B-Ball Breakdown. He this down all the way this earlier, and that's what made me feel like, all right, more respect to Bam for this 83. And then still, our friend Josh Guru definitely say, oh, anyone could score 50 in today's NBA. But I still think it takes a lot for you to like be in the zone to really do that, especially once teams try to lock in and prevent you from being just a dominant offensive threat for the night. I gotta give Bam a little more credit for 83. I think the other thing that stinks, even for me in this, no defense whatsoever. Even with the more implied and intentional defense onto Bam, the fact that they scored 150 and the the Wizards, who are not that great of a team this year, still scored 120 plus is kind of crazy. Tonight, and this is completely off topic, but even tonight, the Lakers and the Bulls, 150, 280 points total between the two teams, and it's just like that's where another thing other people are mad about this, like no defense whatsoever. So it makes it feel like it's not as impressive to Kobe's 81, which you'll see a lot of people saying. Maybe I do actually agree with some of that. Where again, Kobe was in a contentious game with the Raptors, and his 81 really had value, like a lot of value. For this, it's just like, yeah, it's fun. It's clicks. Everyone can just talk about this. You got Wimby saying, "Oh yeah, somewhat." You got Ime Udoka, who's like, I mean, you get 40 plus free throw attempts, and you know it's against the Wizards, and it's just like everyone. Like I think that's again why people aren't impressed by it. We did it against a Bosch Raptors team. This was a nobody team. So I feel you, Randy, in the sense of like, yeah, it kind of is what it is in that regard. That's why I feel like about it. But again, it is still very impressive. Just still got to do it, and he did it. And so,
I feel like it was like it was a blue collar like 83 points. That was like
it felt kind of
Kobe's was
it
like
felt very rugged.
Like flow state, like genius. This was like a hard
Yes,
hat and boots, and
yes,
I'm
yeah.
gonna get these
I
points.
got my lunch pail.
Yeah,
I mean,
Exactly.
36 from 43 from the free throw line means you got to the line a lot. I mean, that's a lot of shots. I mean, just imagine putting up
To
40
not even
shots
be
in the game.
tired. Yeah, they'll
Yeah,
say not to be tired. That's what I say. You still got to do it. That's why it is
yeah.
impressive.
But
And for him to hit all those free throws as a big man too, to hit 36 free throws, so he did miss a lot, but he missed 7, but to hit 36 as a center
out
power
of
forward,
43 as a center power
yeah,
forward. Yeah,
like, you know
it's
what?
good
Okay,
touch.
you have a touch. Yeah, you did that. You did that.
yeah, I mean 30, 31 in the first, and that heat check where he hits the three, he just pulls up for the three. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
in a way he was in flow state himself in the Bam
and like
Adebayo
Hmm.
way.
I think James Harden has been really playing unethical basketball for majority of his career, really, in that sense of like his stats
Free throw merch.
being inflated by a good 8 to 10 points on average of foul baiting. And I can't fault him because
It's the
it's
game.
a
It is a skill.
it's a
Yeah.
play style, and he does it consistently to the point where teams know he wants to do it and he still can get away with it. That's the part where I'm like, you know what, I respect Spo in terms of, I feel like that's where it was orchestrated, where because he had to have given the green light of like, hey guys, we're up, we're gonna run offense through Bam because Tyler Herro's not playing anyways.
No.
And we don't have better options really. And once Bam had that first quarter that you were talking about, then it was like, okay guys, this is what we're gonna do. So I think, to me, it also it kind of adds to, the Miami Heat culture. I think this is another thing for them to put a badge on in an otherwise lackluster season. So I think it was a little bit of that kind of to try to get a spark back. Also have Bam feeling like, this is not a wasted season. I can perform at the
Yeah.
highest level. I
Hmm.
would have liked to have seen him get 10 rebounds. I think that makes it a cooler story and more of a Bam game. He had 9, 2 steals, 2 blocks. He did fill the stat sheet like he normally does. Um, so in that sense, yeah. But to me, also the competition, it really just emphasizes how historically bad this Wizards team is. No Trey
Hmm.
Young, no Anthony Davis. It's probably not even worth risking either of them for the rest of the season. Let the young Bulls get some minutes. And maybe we even use Anthony Davis and Trey Young as trade bait in the offseason. I really don't know where the front office of the Wizards wants to take this team, and I don't think they care about winning. We have a strong enough fan base, and I've seen it year after year, ever since they made all the terrible worst decisions to try to move on from John Wall and then throw something together with Bradley Beal, then to ultimately get rid of Bradley Beal. Um, that was the last time the Wizards ever tried to actually win, in my opinion. And not that they're just necessarily tanking, but based on the acquisitions that the team is making in the offseason, there was not a clear intent to not chase playoff basketball. And that is kind of what has killed my support for the team in recent seasons. But I'm interested to see. I like Alex R. I like some of the young pieces that we have. So I hope that we can clear house in front office and bring in someone who actually cares about winning and instilling that culture. And that also is the part of me that is why I respect Spo. Because if the Wizards had a coach like that, we wouldn't be giving up records like this. And Spo he's smart enough to know that, look, these motherfuckers suck. So let's run it up on their bitch ass and let's
Run it
do
up,
it.
run it up,
Yeah.
run it
So
up, run it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think the competition matters, right? I mean, Jokic dropped 31 points, 20 rebounds, 12 assists, won by 5 against the Spurs. And you could argue that in ways, there was a lot more on the line with each possession. But again, it takes away everything that Bam did. But as sports guru like saying anyone in the NBA could score 50 points, including Luka Doncic, against the Bulls, as Quay was talking about earlier. So
he
that's just
almost
the
dropped a triple double too.
that's just the state of the NBA right now, and hate it or love it. That's just how it is. And um, if you want to see defense, wait till June. Wait till May. Wait for some playoff basketball.
Wait till playoff basketball.
Yeah,
We'll see some feet sliding then. Yeah.
exactly.
That's-
So An hour's passed already. It's been a lot of fun tonight. But all good things have to come to an end, including our show here. So I think we're gonna end it as always with some spiel. So Randy, you want to take it away here? You want to talk a little bit about some
Certainly.
international football?
Come on over. Let's talk about some football, some soccer. International soccer, we're waiting for the World Cup. There is still going to be a few more qualifying playoff matches, but majority of the teams are decided. Now it is a key point in the season where players for their respective national team, if they have not been performing well, you might not get called for the team. So you really need to start performing on your club team in order for the national team coaches to select you, especially for the more competitive nations. I'm talking about Brazil, England, majority of the European squads. They're looking to see who's in form, who's on form. Aside from the star players who cannot get picked, you end up taking about a 30 to 40 man team um, for the entire duration of the World Cup. So a lot of those spots are going to be decided in the domestic leagues based on how these players are showing up and how they're looking in their game. Next, we have the Champions League, which has gone into what is known as the knockout stages. The Champions League has changed format. For those who are familiar with the old format, it used to be groups. If you performed well in your group, you would earn a spot in the knockout rounds. Now there is no longer groups, it is one large league. Each team plays a schedule of different teams throughout the league to earn points. The top 8 teams automatically qualify for the top round of 16. The next teams from the 9th spot to the 24th spot form a 16 team bracket to then go into a playoff with the winning team of each playoff then making it to the round of 16. In the playoff round, we had juggernauts like Real Madrid actually fell down to that 9th spot. So they had to go into a playoff just to make it to the round of 16. Real Madrid actually played against my family's club, Benfica. As you can see in the background here, I've got a Portuguese soccer scarf here, and my family is Portuguese and West African, and we are Benfiquistas, or what we would call Benfica supporters. And actually, in this playoff match, there was a big controversy as one of the Benfica players got into an argument after Vinicius Jr. of Real Madrid scored a goal and danced and celebrated in front of fans. The fans in the crowd started making a racist monkey chants towards Vinicius, and then on top of that, a Benfica player named Prestiani, who's an Argentine, allegedly lifted his shirt over his mouth to call Vinicius a monkey. Vinicius reported this immediately to the referee, and the referee halted the game to basically investigate. Things erupted into chaos. And that was just the first leg of the knockout games. What ended up happening was an investigation. Prestiani still denies ever calling Vinny a monkey. Real Madrid players have attested to hearing him say it. The whole logic is, why would you cover your mouth if you weren't saying anything vulgar? He's trying to say that he used a gay slur in Spanish, which would be maricon, and still equally bad for him to have said. But if you watch the video footage, you can see when he probably said that slur, he didn't have his shirt over his mouth, and you can see him mouthing that slur. And then he gets closer, lifts his shirt over his mouth. That causes Vinny to react. Vinny reacts and goes to the referee, and you see Pressiani is kind of like standing there like, oh fuck, he's gonna actually snitch on me. And anyone who's played sports knows that shit talking, competitive banter is always there. But particularly in European soccer, fan bases have a problem with racism. And FIFA has been trying to crack down hard on it. So this was an instance where Vinny Jr., who has often been on the end of a lot of racial abuse, I think he handled it more maturely by just, hey, instead of reacting and complaining, he went straight to the referee and said, hey, this is what happened. Look into it. He went about and played his game. He was the most threatening player on the field, scored a goal. Then guess what happens in the second leg? Vinny Jr. bags the goal that puts the Real Madrid through. Fast forward to the round of 16 this week. Real Madrid wins their game against Manchester City, arguably one of the best teams in England, 3-0. So now Real Madrid goes from almost not making it into the knockout stages to having a 3-0 lead in the round of 16. If you ask me, when it comes to the Champions League, Real Madrid is the team to watch. They always, even when they're having a bad season, they play well in this competition, and their star players truly shine. Other teams that are still in the hunt, Arsenal had a game yesterday. They drew 1-1. So still everything to play for them in the second leg. Chelsea got that ass whooped 5-2 and got a little belt. And Barcelona and Newcastle played to a draw as well. And Bayern Munich and PSG won their games. So everything to play for in the Champions League there. Really exciting to see. As I mentioned, a lot of these games are going to inform the players who make it onto the national teams in the World Cup. We have a lot of geopolitical global conflicts going on. Wonder how that's also going to affect the World Cup. Russia has famously been sanctioned from not being able to participate in FIFA events. And one of the hosts, our country, the United States, is now engaged in warfare in the Middle East, and FIFA has not weighed or said anything about this. The Iranian Football Association, they have qualified for the World Cup, but will Iran want to send their players to North American soil in the midst of this war? I highly doubt that. And some of the players have already come out and spoke against and said that they will enlist in military service. So it'll be just a sensitive topic to see how it plays out. And I really hope that the conflict just comes to an end prior to this, and that we can actually use sports for what it's meant to be, to bring cultures together and serve peace. But I am not optimistic of that happening. I think there might be a replacement added, and the show must go on because FIFA can't miss out on this money. So that's it for soccer, but I also do want to highlight some esports going on in the far east of Japan right now, in Tokyo, Japan, at the Ryogokukan Arena, which is a historic sumo arena. Capcom Cup 12 is taking place for Street Fighter 6. Some of the best fighting game players in the world, 48 to be exact, actually have assembled. There is group phases that start for this as well. We are now on day 3, and the top 16 is being decided. Actually, was just decided as we are recording this episode for you. And a 15-year-old from Chile, Blas, who got second place at last year's Capcom Cup, his first appearance, had one of the most exciting first-round matches against one of the winningest players, which is China's Xiao Hai, who was actually probably the highest earner of any fighting game player last year in terms of prize money. And they had a thrilling 3-2 set that I recommend anyone to Google on YouTube. It was a flash finish with a morsel of health left, and 15-year-old reactions just taking place for Hail Mary Super from Sagat to defeat Mai Shiranui. But it's amazing to see how these esports athletes they've been training all year and had to go through a rigorous tournament tour schedule to earn points to qualify for this event. So it's truly the best from all around the world. And yeah, there will be a finals taking place this weekend, and also Street Fighter League world champions will be competing for the title of a team competition of 4 players competing against each other. So check out some of that esports. I think in terms of like just heated pressure and reactions and competition in terms of FPS games, fighting games. I think there's some really great content there that if production teams can start to storytell and also players developing better personalities, we can really start to expand and see esports has already grown tremendously in the last decade. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes in the next 20 years. That's my spiel for the night. Sorry, that was a long one, but I'll pass it on to you.
You're good. You're good. Oh, was so you go next? Or want me to go? Is that my spiel?
I could go next. Yeah, usually, talking about the Penguins there, and then shout out to the Penguins who um, had one of their best comebacks ever without Crosby and Malkin. But um, we'll talk about that next time. I wanted to touch on two things that are dealing with America. First is UFC Freedom 250 has been announced. It's the White House card. White House is being renovated to be able to host these events, in particular this event here. Ilya Taporia is going to be fighting Gaethje for the lightweight championship. Um, We've seen Gaethje fight championship fighters before. He's been knocking on the door, but has never been able to get over the hump there. It's hard to see him doing well against Ilya Taporia, who has knocked out everyone that he has been in the ring with. Really good competition, whether he's knocking out Max Holloway or Charles Oliveira, and it doesn't matter who it is. Speaking of Charles Oliveira, he won the BMF belt, the title that a lot of UFC fans are kind of lukewarm on. It's not really a real championship. And Oliveira won against Max Holloway, who once famously on uh, on live television in the middle of the day. This was when I think it was on ABC that time when Disney saw the rights, saying that he was the best boxer in the world when he was fighting Hooker, and he gets completely dominated by Charles Oliveira, who was able to take him down and essentially drown him in the ground pound. Get it, and he was unable to sub him, which is amazing because once you're down there with Do Bronx, you usually are going to tap out. But Mac's
Mm-hmm.
such a tough guy. He's always been known to have a tough chin, and seems like his submission defense just off of just pure God given talent. He was able to avoid getting finished, but he lost every single round there. But going back to the Freedom card there, Pereira is also going to fight Cyril Gahn, who poked Tom Astonwall in the eye, and that ended up being a very disappointing fight. And before that, he was choked out by John Jones in very, very quick fashion there. So a lot of fans are wondering, is this even the card that we really want to see? And if you look at the rest of the card, I mean, all of the Americans look like they're about to get dog walked, whether it's O'Malley or Michael Chandler or Bo Nickel. It doesn't look like the best for the Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And as I had mentioned, the main card with Gaethje there, how is Gaethje going to handle it? It's Poirier. He probably will not. So we might see all of the Americans lose there in the White House, which I don't think is something that we as Americans want to see. So we'll be cheering on our fighters, but it's not looking too well with the matchmakers. Dana, I don't know what you're doing. What was supposed to happen was Ilya was supposed to fight Islam Makhachev, but Islam apparently has some sort of injury and had to back out. And we were also supposed to see John Bones Jones
Johnson.
fight
Mm-hmm.
Alex Pereira, and it seemed like he had been training and on social media was talking all about it. And now there's this fallout with him and Dana and just the UFC in general. So we really wonder why wasn't he the one that was featured on this card? Arguably the greatest fighter of all time there. So why isn't John in that card? I have no idea. And I think this probably means the end of John Jones's career in the UFC. I think But there was some new news announced today, though. Speaking of American fighters, Sean Strickland, who just went up against Fluffy a couple of weeks ago and won in very convincing fashion. He'll be fighting Khamzat Shemaev for that middleweight belt. These guys have sparred together in the gym. They've been bickering back and forth. Sean's been calling Kamzat a terrorist, and Kamzat is basically saying, "I smashed this guy," in typical Kamzat fashion. So that one should be really, really good fight there for UFC 328. Speaking of America and us being a little bit disappointing right now, the American baseball team, the WBC, almost didn't qualify for the knockout round. They were in the group stage. They had won by not enough runs against Mexico, and they were in this position because they ended up losing to Italy in the next game at 8-6 because of the amount of runs that Italy had scored. If Mexico somehow could have had the result go differently last night, the Americans would be home. But instead, the Italians, which the Twitterverse has been
Dying.
complaining that it's actually Italian Americans, people who are born here in America represent the Italian team. They were able to beat the Mexicans there in that final game in the group stage. So that will be something to watch there moving into the actual playoff bracket. What is going to happen to this America team? And there's been a lot of backlash on the coach, and apparently the coach wasn't aware that the team was even in this position. And a lot of these hardcore baseball fans are saying, why are we playing this roster, which seems like a roster that you would put out there, while you're feeling out the team, not when you're trying to win games. And it was just not the best look for the Americans. However, we do have a game today, since it is Friday, against the Canadians, and also the other teams that are going to be playing tomorrow are the Koreans. They will be playing the Dominicans tomorrow, who have been arguably the most exciting team to watch in the WBC. Tatis Jr. hitting home runs, and all of those who are hardcore baseball fans probably seen those edits online that are probably politically incorrect, but hilarious. And the Koreans barely made it out of the group stage as well. They had to score a bunch of runs against Australia because of some of the losses that they had. They lost to Japan, Shohei hitting a home run during that game. But they will be one of the teams representing Asia there, over there on that side of the bracket. So there's going to be WBC playoffs again tonight. There'll be I think the Korea and Dominican Republic game is going to be at 6. I believe the U.S. and Canada game should be shortly after there. So lots of baseball. Again, it's almost like all this I think excitement about the World Cup, and man, is this even going to happen with all of these teams who are threatening to pull out? But right now, we do have some exciting baseball there moving forward. We will have the Japanese again, who I think will probably be the favorites. They arguably have the best player in the world. And then, as I mentioned, the team that is playing Korea tonight, the Dominicans, who obviously have really, really talented players there. So a lot of cool playoff baseball to watch tonight. Baseball in March, right? And obviously there's spring training as well. I know those Pirates fans are really excited about their young buck prospect too. So, but yeah, just wanted to give some updates there on some leagues that we usually don't touch base on there. So we'll hand it off to
Shout out
Quay.
Italian American immigrants. Shout out to
Yeah,
all the Italian Americans.
shout the Ace.
Yeah, shout out to Ace. Shout out
You
to
feel me?
Ace. You heard me? But I'll talk a little basketball. Mine won't be quite as long, just to touch base about things. We talked a little bit about it with 83, but that being a question of the NBA defense, and you have with this being talked about, and then also with Steve Kerr bringing up, the league needs to be shorter, the season needs to be shorter, and a lot of fans feeling as though like, why am I paying to come to these games if the stars aren't going to show up? If they play 10 less games, are they still going to show up to all those games, or do I still have to worry about load man? Or do I still worry about actual effort being put out there? Like I get like watching offense, but I also think a lot of people like watching a competition, and it's one thing to see like a high scoring game because just both teams are in flow state on offense, that no matter what type of defense you're throwing out there, you're just scoring. That's one thing. I do think it's another thing when teams just kind of, it's just like a scoring fest. And a lot of people feels like basketball has become more ISO. And like we've mentioned, I personally do think it's more of this is what to expect with your season NBA basketball. You're not going to really get max effort every night, which I do think fans have a right to feel a certain way, because I do feel like these dudes play more serious in the summertime during their random pickup games, and they want to do getting this like 7-figure check, 8-figure check. Um, and I can understand a fan's frustration with that, which is why some people are always like, I prefer watching college, because you know that if it's not high scoring, there's effort that you can see. There's still seemingly a lot of passion and love for the game. But I do think this year we started to see that shift a little bit more in the NBA. The likes of Wimby, really coming in. He just loves basketball. Like, I mean, he cried the other night, um, winning a regular
Regular
season game.
season.
Comeback. Yeah, it's like comeback victory. Dude is emotional about it. We don't see that as much anymore. I think a lot of people get behind Wemby because of that, and people are starting to watch basketball because of that. And there's so much parity this year now too. I think we've even seen the parity over the past few years, but yeah, OKC, sure. I mean, Shea just had an amazing night 2 nights ago. I mean, even tonight had a great night as well. Um, Clearly could still be an MVP type candidate. He could probably win it as well. I think it should go to Jalen Brown, but other conversation. But I think we're starting to see the intensity in certain aspects kick up with new rivalry, and players not necessarily always liking each other. We're starting to see more fights break out again. We're starting to see more chippy moments, which I think is going to be good for the league. And we're going to see more shift where people will start to have more love and respect for the game during the regular season. Because I think a lot of these players coming up are starting to feel that competition nature again. Maybe it's because we all believe we are the main character of our story, and we're living in that more than ever nowadays. You know, who knows? But I think fans are going to be more excited with obviously playoff basketball right around the corner, but just future basketball with guys like Wemby, really coming in, even and most nights just always giving you pretty much like his best on both ends of the floor, and he's going to talk while he does it. I mean, he is the pass, like he said to Dagnall the other night there, or not Dagnall to his coach the other night. It's just it's going to be interesting to see what other guys have that intensity, but I think the league is in good hands. We just probably need to have Silver maybe penalize or punish teams if they decide that they're just going to rest the player. Um, because again, people pay money to come see the superstars. They want to come see the stars. And I would be very upset if I didn't see LeBron. Let's say it's LeBron's final season, and I feel like obviously LeBron's final season, he would play every single game that he was physically healthy for. But let's say LeBron was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to play tonight," and that would suck. You just spend all this money to see him play, and he doesn't. And there's ways to get around that if you feel like you need to kind of take a bit of a breather. Maybe play 20 minutes, play the first quarter, play 5 minutes in each quarter. There's a lot of ways to get around that. So I think we're going to see Adam Silver make those changes. But WNBA, they're having their own problems of their own with not getting a CBA deal done. And this is going into their new season, which means is there going to be a later start? Is there going to be a season here? This was the entire problem as why the WNBA had the leagues popping up like an unrivaled. Why you had even Ice Cube talk about bringing some ladies over and stuff like that, and these other leagues just wanting to pop up. The WNBA has never been the most financially successful. I think the game has been growing over years in popularity. We saw that with Unrivaled this past season, where I think there was a lot of positive engagement, where people loved the setting, where it's 3-on-3, the 1-on-1. Seemed like there was more intensity and passion, which again, I think that's what people wanting to see when they watch sports. These are people making money playing a child's game and not showing any passion, kind of sucks. But seeing that the WNBA hasn't got the CBA done, I have no idea what we're going to end up seeing, which I'll segue into this segue after this. But college season's almost over, so we'll see what happens here. They have some time to maybe get something going, and then during the season, maybe a month later, then it won't interfere, and it still won't interfere with the NBA for next season. But it just really sucks because, again, I think there was a deal on the table that the ladies probably should have taken, just as the popularity gets more and more. The popularity grows, we'll start to see like, yeah, you deserve more money. But I think when they got this certain deal, even though they thought they deserved more, which maybe they do deserve more, it was a really good deal based before. And I think maybe looking too far forward has got them in this position of, okay, well, where do we go from here? Especially the WNBA and the NBA kind of having leverage over them at this point. So we'll see how that all shapes up for WNBA. As we mentioned, Asia Wilson, best player in the WNBA, really hope she can get back on the court and still establish more of her dominance. I know people always bring up Caitlin Clark as the future, but let's talk about the here and now. That's Asia Wilson. But then, yeah, as I mentioned, March Madness, that's next week. I think there's a lot of parity amongst the men's side. The women's, I think there's pretty much a clear cut, potential between the teams that will probably likely be in the Final Four, depending on bracketing and matchups. But with the men, I mean, yeah, there's Duke, yeah, there's U of A, there's Michigan, who looks really good too. There's Florida, all these great teams. But then there's also Iowa State. There's a lot of parity. It's not very simple this March Madness year to say, oh yeah, it's gonna be one of these prestigious schools like Duke, or oh yeah, Kentucky's gonna do it. Oh, Kansas State, yeah, these teams are great, but because they're all great, anything can happen here. Houston is a really good basketball team this year as well. So we'll see, we'll really see how this all pans out. I think it's gonna be one of the most exciting Madness tournaments we are going to get on both sides of the spectrum, where whether it's the men's or the women's side. But this men's side is definitely going to be very exciting. Really looking forward to it. Right now, we have the conference tournaments going on right now. So BYU looks really good. I love their young kid there. I'm playing on his name right now, but yeah, it's this college hoops. This is what people get excited for, the month of March. So for those who are interested in doing a bracket, this is going to be a fun year to do a bracket. Whether you decide I'm just based on logos because I don't know anything about these teams, just based off of your favorite colors because you don't know anything about teams, or if you just really believe in your team, and especially if they're like one of these top 8 teams, I think you got a good shot of saying, yeah, any one of them can win the championship this year. So shout out to those guys, and shout out Patrick Jones the second. I want to shout out also CJ Allen the third. I had a lovely chance of meeting him a couple weeks back, right before the draft. Came into my job, and he just recently had his pro day. So really one of the best linebacking prospects in the draft. So I really hope and pray that he lands where he's supposed to and takes advantage of all of his opportunities. As always, he's a really good young man, so definitely hoping for the best. And also, Jacoby Williams, Jr. for Georgia Bulldogs, met him as well, just training out here. I also told him I'll work on him anytime he's in town. But yeah, shout out to those guys too. Your next futures and endeavors, success. All praises to you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Quay, for the basketball update. And yeah, I think you're right about this. I think for a long time, I didn't really like to buy into the idea that March Madness and, these kids, of course, they work hard, but I think the quality of play in comparison to the NBA was always a big gap, I thought, even with the hard work that those kids put out there. But especially with load management and all these different things, it does seem like what's going on here with the NBA. And I think Adam Silver hopefully will be able to fix it because, maybe Bam doesn't score 83 20 years ago. But speaking of AJ Wilson came out on social media saying that her partner, Bam Adebayo, is now has the household personal record now for points in a game. So that a
Very
little
true.
banter
She was
between
at 54.
between those two. So I thought that was really cool. And as Randy said earlier, put those parlays in early for whatever they end up having
Baby
there.
Adebayo
It
is
doesn't
gonna
matter
go
what sport they
crazy.
play, right? But yeah, that's it for us here on the Spiel. It's your boy Sal here, logging out from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Home of the draft. So that should be fun in a couple
I'm
months.
of the draft.
But yeah, thank you, Randy. Thank you, Quay. Always a pleasure having you here
Sure.
on the show. And yeah, until next time, we'll see each other. This is the Spiel Sports Talk Show. This was season 7, episode 5. And we'll see you in a couple weeks for another episode. So good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Real.
That was good.